Hi there. That was the beginning of another series of our MEF webinars. Welcome, everybody. It's today, January 12th, if you're following us live or in wherever you are, whenever you are on demand. So my name is Dario Betti, and I'm the CEO of MEF. It's great to welcome you here for a unique and interesting topic. We're talking about the Telco Edge Cloud. You might well remember that at MEF, we don't talk about standardization technology as much. We tend to look at the business and what's happening. But the Edge Cloud is one of those topics that will change potentially the dynamics, the industry, the services what we are offering today, the mobile devices and mobile networks. So something that for many of you, it's worthwhile understanding as it's been delivered for the first time right now. And I'm very glad to do that with some of the key experts, some of the key innovators out there that are working on this. And let me call them out one by one. We have Tilly Gilbert, the principal consultant and Edge practice lead for STL Partners. Thanks, Tilly, for being here. We also have Sandra Ondruzova, the technology manager from Hutchinson 3, and also the GSMA OPG chair. So great, you're going to present the both sides from GSMA and the operator. Talking about operators and others representations, we also have Mahesh Chapalamodu, principal member of technical staff at Verizon and 5GFF representative as well. And we'll hear more about 5GFF as well. Then Dario Sabella, for senior manager for standards and research at Intel, as well as chairman of ETSI, and specifically the ETSI MEC, which is exactly what we're talking about here, the multi-axis edge computing. And welcome again to Doug Makshima, the CSMO of Summit Tech, one of our members and somebody you've seen very often. As a matter of fact, Doug is taking the lead of some of our discussions in organizing. As a matter of fact, a big thank you for all of you to join and for Doug to create the discussions and invite you directly, some of you. So we will see more of Doug's bringing people in as in the next few weeks, as we're going to have more announcement later as well of our involvement on working groups and conferences about Edge Network and as well. So thanks, everybody. And almost like a pendulum, I mentioned every 20 years, it seems, we see computing power almost moving. You know, it was the mainframe of the 1960s, I will say. The 1980s, it was your personal computer on your desk. But the year 2000, we're talking about servers and hosting. And by 2020, it's another movement. It's moving to the edge of the networks, of some of the telecom networks, including mobile networks. Each time that pendulum move, great advancement in computing happen, great changes in the structure of our industry happen. So I'm really excited, and I should stop talking because by now, 5 minutes past, it's time to get some of the people in and some of the expert telling you what's happening. And I'd love to invite Tilly here. Tilly, your role as STL Partners, you are the external, you can tell us more, the analytical resource, the consulting side. So tell us what we're talking about and what's the value proposition for Telco Edge Cloud?
Yeah, thanks, Dario, and good to be here today. So I've been given the task of trying to cover in 5 or so minutes some of the core basics of what edge computing is and why we think it's important and relevant to the industry. And hopefully that will set up the rest of the conversation and enable the rest of the presenters to talk you through their working groups and what they're focused on edge. So that's what I will try and do. Just a brief bit on STL, though, so you know where I'm coming from. At STL, we focus on technology and telecoms research and consulting and have a particular industry expertise in Edge. That's involved advising clients over the last 5 or so years on their strategies, including lots of telecoms operators, but also technology companies. And we have a specific research product focused on edge computing for those that want to stay in the know about how the market and the industry is evolving. So just at the really core basics, I guess, Dario, you already set up a little bit the distinction or the division that has gone on within the industry for some time, where developers and others looking to host applications have to make a choice, or have had to have made a choice in the past, between either deploying their application in a local compute environment, so whether on a computer or a device, or on a traditional server hosted in an enterprise comms room, for instance, or they've chosen to host their applications more recently in the cloud. And there are pros and cons of both deployment models for application developers. And what we are seeing is that edge computing enables developers to access almost the pros of both of those types of deployments. So to deploy their application in a cloud-like environment that has some of the performance capabilities that comes from local compute. And where you have people that have requirements for both those local compute-like characteristics and the cloud compute-like characteristics, edge computing, or bringing cloud computing closer to end users, closer to where the data is being generated, can deliver real value. To go into that in a little bit more detail, it's worth bearing in mind that there are a few different types of edge that you will hear about. What this diagram is trying to show you is some of those types of edge, but really where we'll be focusing for the rest of the presentation primarily will be on the network edge portion of this diagram. So we'll be focused on some of the roles that telecoms operators can play in helping to deliver edge computing for application developers and end users through hosting cloud computing like environments in physical locations within their telecoms operators structure. So that might be, for instance, in a central office of a telco where they already have rich network connectivity, and they actually have some space which they are able to dedicate to running compute workloads as well. There are other types of edge too, like deployments on customer premises or deployments in more like internet exchange points. But we're going to be focused in on that network edge and the role of the telecoms operator, I think, predominantly in the rest of today's session. Just in terms of the value proposition, because that was the other question I was asked, in general, we see the value proposition being about delivering a combination of those local compute-like and cloud compute-like characteristics that I was talking about earlier. This slide goes into a bit more detail about what those are. So often what you will find is that edge computing is talked about in relation to latency. So in relation to helping to reduce the latency which can be experienced when you run workloads in a physically distant centralized cloud computing location. However, we would say that edge computing goes beyond that and can also deliver additional significant benefits that help to fuel a value proposition, including things like reduced backhaul, so filtering information at the edge rather than streaming everything to the cloud, and data sovereignty, so being able to ensure that all information is kept within, say, a specific country where you know the data protection laws and you feel comfortable that the data is going to be stored and secured in a way that you are comfortable like. Delivers those things while also providing the things that developers love around scalability and flexibility around being able to provide this on an as-a-service OpEx-based model. So that's really what we see as the value proposition for Edge, and where companies need both of these types of characteristics is the sweet spot for those that think that Edge is going to change the way that they deliver their applications. The last thing on my side, just to flag to you guys that while this is still relatively nascent as a topic area, there has already been real traction and real developments in deploying specifically at the network edge I'm looking at here. So this slide gives you a sense of the activity that we've seen by some of the major telecoms operators over the last several years in deploying edge sites and locations and making them available for developers and other customers to come in and put those compute workloads in those network edge sites. So we've seen traction across all the major markets, really across the US, probably the most well-known and the most mature of edge markets, through Europe, and also in markets in Asia Pacific as well. And this gives you a sense of where we're at today in terms of the deployments. That was all I wanted to cover. I'll hand back to you, Dario. Hopefully that's given people a bit of a 101 on what Edge is and where we're at in the industry today.
Well, great. Thank you, Tilly. We start with the right, approach. We understand now what it is. Feeling pretty excited, but having you here, I have a question for you. Before I mention it, if you are watching live, remember Q&A. You can ask your own question for now, for Tilly or for anybody else. Well, and Tilly, as a role as a consultant, tough as it is, I do expect you to have a crystal ball next to you and to tell me now, well, what are the main applications you expect to be launched? We've seen you shouldn't just now on your map, things are happening, it's still early days. What would you expect next?
Yeah, so I think for the network edge in particular, and for sort of for mobile edge compute, for multi-access edge compute from a telecoms operator perspective, there's a few sort of types of workloads and types of industry verticals that might drive some traction in the next few years. I think media and entertainment is a big and obvious one. There is already a value proposition around sort of distributed workloads, say with CDN, and the idea that that will go further and help to cache more content closer to end users is an obvious anchor use case for edge computing. And that extends into other media and entertainment type applications like, say, cloud gaming. I think the other thing that might be quite interesting from a telco perspective would be industry verticals like transport and logistics or smart city, where there is no one fixed physical site where you could deploy edge. And so instead, you're likely to look to a physically proximate network edge sites to support those workloads. I think those are the two areas where there's significant interest and traction today, often underpinned through video use cases, video analytics use cases, or use cases related to handling the video traffic like CDN.
Well, thanks. Thank you, Tilly. Prepared on every event, even on the future of. But in my job to make sure that we hear the different sides of the different experts, I like to call in Dario Sabella from Intel and from ETSI. So we all know Intel as a semiconductor giant it is, but also ETSI as one of the principal standard bodies in the world of telecom internet. Now, Dario, let me put some pressure immediately on you and on Tilly. Back on what you heard in terms of a presentation from STL on definition of edge, would you comment, would you challenge anything you heard right now, or would you agree with Tilly?
Oh, thank you so much. And by the way, thanks also for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here with all the speakers in this webinar. So yeah, thanks for the question. I have to say I liked it a lot, the presentation from Tilly, especially when she was presenting the different types of edge, right? There are many choices, and this is the most commonly asked question: where is the edge? And the answer is it depends. So I know that this is disappointing, but the true answer and honest answer is there are different level of edge and deepness at the edge. How far you want to go depends on the opportunity and many trade-offs between performance and cost. And the second slide, I was very well delighted to see. It was about the value proposition. I believe Tilly was helping to demystify MEC, I like to say, because MEC is not only about benefits in terms of latency, and she was mentioning other benefits like reduced backhaul, scalability, mobility, resiliency, but also the data localization and many other benefits that can be different depending on the use case. And maybe this is helping a lot to give more value to MEC. So thanks for the presentation.
And fantastic. Now, Dario, in your double role in terms of a chair of the MEC standardizations, I need to ask, how far are we with standardizing the multi-access edge computing?
Yeah, good. Thank you. Thank you for the question. I can share my screen with my presentation because indeed, on behalf of this group, I hope you can see my slide, and now I'm going to put in presentation mode. I hope you can see it. And indeed, I'm here representing ETSI MEC, is a standard body on multi-access edge computing. And under the umbrella of ETSI. And so despite of the name, this is producing globally applicable standards on ICT. And this is indeed an industry specification group. So the work is really driven by industrial needs. And it essentially is a cloud computing at the edge of the network, as we have seen in the previous presentation. We don't have now the time to see, but there is a nice cartoon produced by ETSI showing to the wider audience what is MEC about. I will give just the material for further reading later after the webinar. But essentially, I can tell you this is a huge group I'm pleased to represent. We are under the 27 members. I can also confirm this is MEC is getting traction, as Tilly said. We're at June 2021, we were 114. Now we are under 27 members across operators, technology vendors, IT players, application developers. And of course, we are collaborating with other standard bodies and industry verticals. So Tilly mentioned the transportation. We have also 5G AA, 5G Automotive Association in the membership, and we are collaborating with the GSMA, which is as well in the membership, and other organizations and open source communities. So it's a huge ecosystem and continuously growing. What we are doing essentially, I will not go too much in detail, but just I need to point out we are producing a standard which is the foundation of edge computing, essentially bringing to the game an intermediate application endpoint between the client application in the terminal and the cloud backend for services, right? So at the end, we have this kind of intermediate endpoint for the application and trying to standardize what is needed to answer to existential questions for application developers at the edge. And our approach is to produce open standards, allowing also multiple implementation, proprietary implementation to ensure interoperability. And we are based on virtualization infrastructure definitions for other standards. We are aligned with 3GPP when it comes to making 5G. And let me remind also, acronym MEC stands for multi-access edge computing. That means I want to remind the access agnostic nature, because of course a mainstream is 5G, but of course we are also supporting other technologies for radio access like Wi-Fi, but also fixed access, right? So this is really cloud computing at the edge. And we are addressing a lot of different verticals, as I said, automotive, but also today we'll talk about federation. So I just wanted to point out what is the value of MEC. It's just not only for the infrastructure owners to build an infrastructure and a system, but also to provide something which is usable and consumable by application development community. That's the real goal. And let me say also our core business as a MEC, if you wish. We are delivering standards, essentially APIs, application programming interfaces for application developers. And this is with some exemplary specifications on selected APIs required by the industry, but also let me also emphasize is that there is a possibility for other stakeholders to introduce their own APIs, provided that they are compliant with basic design principles for RESTful-based HTTP API as a universally recognized language for application developers. Yeah, I will not go into detail about the long history of MEC. We started in early 2015, we make phase 1 already aligning with 4G and 5G since release 15, and now MEC phase 3, which I'm having the pleasure to chair. We are aligning with MEC phase 3 with the 3GPP release 18, then 5G even advanced, and working on many topics, among them also federation, as I said. Just wanted to mention for 10 seconds other complementary activities. Maybe we can talk about that later, but it's very important also a working group that we have established inside MEC called the Code. It's about deployment and ecosystem engagement activities. It's including a lot of very heterogeneous but complementary activities, just not producing standards or specifications, right? We are not just writing paper, but also conducting other activities like open API representation of our APIs, production of testing and conformance tests, publishing information about the MEC ecosystem, implementation, proof of concept, trials, providing sandbox to application developers, collaborating with the open source communities, and organizing events like hackathons, plug tests, and also publishing some tutorials on MEC specific topics. So this is very, very important, as well as producing specifications. And let me talk very briefly about what we do for the Telco Edge Cloud. It's a complicated matter. Maybe it deserves more deepening, but I believe I can give you some flavors, because this was really truly started by a requirement from the industry. We are mentioning GSMA. We have the pleasure to have OPG here in the webinar today, and we published in ETSI MEC a very first work report on MEC federation, on multi-access computing, inter-MEC system, and MEC to cloud system coordination. This was defining for us the MEC federation, and we were indeed expanding our scope from intra-system to inter-MEC system and MEC to cloud. And this is, of course, in need of initial study. This is what we did for our first report, and now we are focusing on the normative work. Why we are doing this? Connecting to what Tilly said before, there are many use cases. I can just mention a couple of them. Automotive and smart cities, as mentioned by Tilly before, because it's in the real world, we have smart cities with multiple operators, multiple car makers, multiple MEC vendors, and this is in need of MEC federation. And as well, maybe cloud gaming with multiplayer and AR gaming immersive scenarios. This is as well very interesting. There are many other use cases, but just to give you a flavor of the motivation of this work. And this was also motivated by a trigger from GSMA that was asking standard bodies to put standards in place to ensure interoperability, because this is a critical, maybe we can talk also about that, for the role of the standards. And of course, we are doing this in collaboration with 3GPP to create consistent standards and avoid duplication work. And this is our first result. We have published in March past year an updated architecture, including the MEC federator as a logical entity for the architecture. And also, we are about to publish, I believe in a few days from now, there will be a new publication of MEC 40 specification on MEC federation enablement APIs. So I don't have the time to give you more details on that, but just to give you this as a flavor, as some pointers, and also the fact that this is a part of a bigger picture and collaboration between not only ETSI and 3GPP, as I said, but also with open source communities under the umbrella and coordination with GSMA, because this organization is an industrial association acting as a sort of customer organization, asking for requirements and then also checking about the compliance and certification of this kind of products for the federation. So yeah, just to give you some other pointers of material which is complementary to the specification, Dario, we published a white paper and a podcast episode on MEC federation with the nice deployment options from operators that can be a nice reading for our audience. yeah, this is just for information.
Well, thank you. I feel a bit guilty to all of you, but I'm just giving enough time for you to whet the appetite to some of the people out there. There is so much more. We will share the slides, and Dario, but really the third phase of a 9-year project. There's a lot of work that goes in standardization, as if we didn't know. But it does show so many things happening right now. At the same time, let me ask, what happened right now? We hear a lot about open source and related efforts. What does the adoption? What does these open source means for the adoption of Telco Edge Cloud right now?
Oh, thanks for the question, because this is indeed something that so far historically standard body didn't take care enough, I believe, about what was happening in the open source ecosystem. There is an outside world out there, and not only as a standard guy, I tell you, I'm not religious about standards. Okay, it's important, very important, to exploit the powerful role of open source communities. And I believe this is also helping to speed up the work. From the standards, we need to be inspired, and we need contribution from working code, from really working solutions, from trials. So I really welcome the collaboration between standardization and open source. This can help going faster to the market. And I believe GSMA has understood very well this, because they are also collaborating with the CNCF under Linux Foundation. We also, as a MEC, we are not an open source project, but we are collaborating with the LF Edge Ucraino, for example. And it's really important to collaborate with this kind of communities, and this can feed also very fruitfully our work in the standardization. So I see a better collaboration. I want really to emphasize this as a help for the ecosystem and also for the stakeholders to bring to the market earlier and better these kind of solutions.
Collaboration is music to our ears to hear that from you, Dario. Thank you. Let me invite here Sandra Ondrozova from HWL, Hutchinson Wellpower, the group we know, and for their brand 3 as well. Also for a role as the chair of a GSMA OPG. Sandra, first of all, in my official role to make sure that there is discord in the industry, well, we heard of collaborations and how important it is with ETSI from Dario. How would you define your collaboration with standards? Yourself, ETSI, FreeGPP, as Dario mentioned as well, and many others. Is that going as you wish?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for inviting us, the whole GSMA OPG group and myself, to this webinar, and give us the opportunity to tell you more about it. And back to your question, well, collaboration, as Dario mentioned, is extremely important, especially when we want to deliver something into the whole industry, because we want to avoid fragmentation in the ecosystem. And as we know, different organizations have different release cycles. Some of them publishes updates very often, let's say monthly or quarterly. For some of them, it takes a little bit longer to update their specification. And for us, it's a challenge, because in GSMA, we have certain release cycles as well. And for that reason, we also have to collaborate very closely with ETSI MEC, with Dario, and also with 3GPP SA6, who is also responsible for all the standards related to the MEC. And on top of it, we also work very closely, as Dario mentioned, with Linux Foundation project Camara, where you have all these open source experts that they work on a completely different way of working and different release cycles. So I would say it's a challenge. And the way how we try to tackle it is to have regular update calls as a chairs to ensure that we inform each other about all the challenges, about the progress, and the the situation and also the plans to publish different standards and documents.
Well done. I like the way openly you say it is a challenge, but well done to all of you at the GSMA, ETSI, and the 3GPP to take the challenge and working together. It's the best for the industry. It makes us interested. But talking about challenges and on what we are doing here, Sandra, this is potentially a new business model. This is a new concept for telcos. How can the operators get ready together to do all of this?
Okay, it's perfect. So let me explain what we have done in GSMA. We've heard from Tilly about that the edge can be almost anywhere, and we are facing the challenges how to deploy different applications as close as possible to the customer, to the end user, our customers. And for that reason, GSMA came up with the operators platform that actually enables to deploy this type of any kind of application as close as possible to the end user. It also enables to expose all the network capabilities to the third-party providers, because that's what we mentioned, that we also need to pay attention to all the application providers, make their life a little bit easier, provide them a simplified set of APIs so they can develop the application as they need. Also, the biggest advantage of this operators platform, that is a functional models, set of functional models that can enable to deploy the application, is that it also provides a single point of access to the third party. So it's easy for them to deploy the service or consume the service with a single integration, and they have a huge footprint or large coverage of where they can provide a service. And also it helps them to speed up the time to market, because this is, let's be honest, this is important. We don't want them to connect to a lot of different platforms with a different set of APIs that can take a long time. What Dario mentioned several times is federation. So federation is, again, very important, and this is one of the main reason why we introduced this operative platform. So it enables to connect to different platforms or platform from a different operators, or you can have even have an aggregators platform to speed up this time to market or deployment of the different features. And also what is important is that all these interfaces are well defined, and they are also well standardized, so it's easy to access them. And the architecture we propose is also very flexible, because it allows and supports different deployment options. As you can see on this picture on the left, you can have an aggregator platform or that connects to several operators, or an operator can have its own platform that is connected to the customer. Well, as I already mentioned, that the value of the operator platform is that it provides the service for the customers while they are roaming and also while they are mobile, because that's also important to support the mobility. The single point of to manage the subscribers, that's what I already mentioned, and also this federation of different platforms enables to provide the capabilities from different operators via one single entry point. We have talked about federation quite a lot. So it means that we want to make this whole solution interoperable. We want to connect two or more different platforms. So it doesn't have to be always the operator platform from GSMA, but maybe it can be a platform from 5GFF. We will hear the presentation later. So we need to ensure that this interface, how the platforms are connected, is standardized, well understood, and it provides the well-defined set of APIs. What can this interface be used for is, for example, to provide access to the resources of the application that is deployed in your partner's network. It also enables the opportunity or the capability to share the resources or also to manage the life cycle and monitor the resources of the application. So federation is extremely important, and it's very important to define these interfaces. And that's what we are doing in GSMA. Let me quickly introduce the groups, what we currently have. So the main one, the plenary one, is called Operator Platforms Group, or OPG. And this group is responsible mainly for developing the requirements and also defining the platform architecture. We have a group of experts, of API experts, and they are responsible for identifying of these APIs that are required to support the operator platform requirements, to connect to other operators or to connect to the third parties. And also they collaborate closely with ETSI and 3GPP, but also with Linux Foundation Project Camara. We wouldn't be able to do all this work alone. And for that reason, we also work closely with the security group within GSMA that is responsible for making sure that the security requirements and procedures captured in the documents are clearly defined, so we can prevent future problems or fraud. So it's very important to cover also the security aspect. And on top of it, we work closely with the wholesale agreement group, where they try to define the charging principles and the federation agreement templates. I mentioned the collaboration within GSMA, but we already briefly discussed the collaboration with the other industry partners. As you can see from this architecture, I'm not going to describe it in more details, but we need to work with 3GPP and ETSI very closely and try to reuse as much as possible from what they have already specified, because we don't want to reinvent the wheel. So for this reason, the collaboration and coordination with them is crucial. On top of it, we also work closely with Linux Foundation Project Camara, where all the open source community there are also all the API experts, hyperscalers, application developers, and this group of people is responsible for defining a simplified set of APIs, a common set that can be easily understood by the application provider. So they can be very easily used. So for this reason, the collaboration is important. Because we don't have enough time to talk in more details about what we are doing, you can find all the information on all the documents that we have published. So this is all the list. You can find them on the GSMA webpage. And with that, I will hand it over to you, Dar.
Well, thank you, Sandra. And by the way, if you are wondering, we will share by email afterwards different links. So thanks for Sandra and Dario and everybody else if you want to add some of those. All of you out there, and I might have seen there was a couple of hands up or maybe one. If you want to speak to us, Q&A or chat, do let us know. Let me know the questions. If not, it'll be my pleasure. And Sandra, before you go, you will not leave us too long, but we've talked so far about some of the major stakeholders, including with yourself and Mahesh later, the mobile operators. We haven't got today, and probably it's a question of time, some of the other big players out there. We probably say the hyperscalers, the ones that have partly dominated the cloud as it is today. Well, from your point of view, from an operator point of view, how do you define them today? Are the operator going to get the pie that was the hyperscaler until recently? Are you going to be fighting? Are you going to be working together? How's it going to look like?
Oh, well, that's a very tricky question, but let's be honest, they are a very important partner in the whole ecosystem, and we need to find a way how to work with them. We also have to have some solutions, how we can use their solution, how we can integrate with their products, and also how it can fit into the whole standard solution, but also the solution that is provided by GSMA OPG. So for that reason, We can see them as the partners, well, yeah, that's what I can say, that they are important partners that we shouldn't exclude from the whole communication and also from the whole solutions that we are providing as an industry.
And so that's an action on me now to make sure they're invited to our next chat as well. So we will include them and make sure we hear their voices. But as we talked before, collaboration seems to be a very important thing. Sorry, Sandra, I interrupted. You were saying?
Yeah, so maybe next time you can also invite them and ask them what they think about all these solutions that we have presented or we are going to present today.
Fantastic. We will in that case. So thanks, Sandra. And let me call in then to the presentation Mahesh Chapala Madugo, which is from Verizon as well for 5G Future Forum, or as I abbreviated before with 5GFF. And Mahesh, I've asked that to Sandra as well. What do you think of the collaboration, the framework which is now emerging? We are seeing the 3GPP, the ETSI, which is in GSMA now. What is the next step, so to speak?
Sure. Thank you for having me here, first of all, and very informative talk, great from my previous speakers. I'll jump right into the slides that I prepared for this. Okay. Again, I think we have repeatedly heard collaboration is the key. There's no other way about doing it to ensure that we are able to meet the interoperable federation aspects of the APIs that we are all building towards. 5GFF, again, let me take this opportunity. I'm here representing 5GFF. I'll talk a bit about this. Maybe not everyone on this call have heard about 5GFF before. It was established back in 2020 with a small group of like-minded operators. That number of operators has been constantly growing. So what I was saying about was that a group of like-minded operators came together back in 2020 to establish 5GFF, 5G Future Forum, and the list of operators has been ever growing since. And with the focus of this group is purely to ensure higher adoption and growth of MEC. And this we do it in close collaboration. Again, collaboration is, we have been using the word so much during this whole webinar. And there's multiple players in the ecosystem, ISVs, SIs, CSPs, and the other standard bodies, what Sandra was mentioning earlier. So in collaboration with all of them, we continue to develop API spec. There's a wide range of work that we do as part of 5GFF. I'll cover some of them in the following slides. Okay. Here's a slide about 5GFF North Star. It's a very busy slide. The key takeaway from here, if I have to summarize, is that we are working on harmonizing the abstraction layer of the network as a pattern, what you see in the bottom right side. And this we are doing across all the operators. So interoperability is key. And for a wide range of players in the market, which is a combination of CSPs, ISVs, SIs. So we see all of them would be the users of the APIs that we are primarily building. And the focus is that it should be easy to use. That's one of the gaps that we found, that we want developers who have no knowledge of telco networks to be able to take advantage of these APIs for the benefit of their own applications. So interoperability, ease of use, low friction integration, and a wide type of integrations possible could be with SIs building solution on top of it, or CSP creating aggregation layer. All of this should be possible via the APIs abstraction layer that we are building. Moving on, again, within 5GFF, we have a commercial work stream as well as technical work stream, where we take up different focus areas. Specifically, on the API development aspect, here are some of the focus areas, just to give an idea about what we are working on. Starting from Edge Discovery Service. You already saw the video. It was meant to be after this presentation, but no worries. You saw the power of Edge Discovery Service APIs. Some of the other ongoing work is workload orchestration, bidirectional API, where we are closely working with the CSPs, the network intelligence exposure, where some of the key KPIs of the network will be exposed via intent-based APIs. Again, this will help the application developers enhance the end user experience. And also, last but not the least, is the traffic steering and optimization. Some very interesting work going. For some of these focus areas, the APIs are already out, even implemented by multiple operators, whereas for the other focus areas, the API spec is still under development. A deeper dive into specifically Edge Discovery Service, as I mentioned, which is already out and available for integration. When we started out with 5GFF, one of the initial problem statements we could clearly see was being able to discover the most optimal MEC site, or even for the end users to be able to connect to what is the most optimal endpoint for them. In cloud, the density of cloud is lower as compared to MEC. Just within Verizon, putting on my Verizon hat now, we have partnered with AWS to launch 19 wavelength zones across US. It's crucial that a application end user is connecting to the right endpoint. A lot of use cases are latency sensitive application. What Tilly and Dario were mentioning, it's not purely latency sensitive, but wide range. But latency is one of the key metrics for deploying app on the edge. So being able to connect to the closest MEC is very crucial. And as the density of the MEC deployment keeps growing, this becomes a challenge. So Edge Discovery Service.
I'm afraid we might suffer from those network issues, problems again. I see a bit of a red light next to Mahesh's name. So until we get him back, I think if we're trying, there was one question, so we're probably moving to Q&A as well as we moving towards the end. I believe that Dario Sabala, often mentioned when then some important things is mentioned. It's always for Dario, not for myself. But Norbert Eringsar was asking one question that you might want to potentially reply right now. Excellent talks, thanks, Norbert. To Dario says we've heard today that there's a collaboration is key. HETC as an MOU with the IEEE Standard Association of our joint activities. Thank you. So as we get some, save some time to get Mahesh back, Dario, could you reply to that question? Are you working?
Yes, Dario, I was about to type, but I can tell also live, no problem. Yes, indeed, HETC is an MOU in place, a memorandum of understanding with IEEE. This is including many groups inside ETSI, like for example NFV, Network Function Virtualization. So for example, for exchanging information with the group IEEE SDN committee on SDN. Now, since MEC is, as I said, based on NFV and virtualization definitions, I see this potential collaboration also very pertinent in principle, even if I have to say so far we didn't have the opportunity to work practically with the IEEE together with ETSI MEC. But with that in general, yes, because there are many groups, as I said, included in this MOU.
Well, thanks, Dario. With only a few minutes, I'm not sure we'll be able to get Mahesh back before the end of the hours, but I suspect some of you might have to leave us. Doug, I know that you were partly complementing the discussion we're just looking at right now, the 7 operators coming together, looking at interoperability. Can you give us, and we'll come back to Mahesh as soon as we can you give us a bit of an examples of how Summitech, developer for multiple elements, but including some of the applications that are on Edge, are looking at 5GFF and MEC in general?
Sure, thanks, Dario. And it's great to be on the panel with such an esteemed group of colleagues here in the industry and ecosystem, especially from a standards and large trade association standpoint, because it's, they're really laying the foundation for what we're trying to achieve here with Telco Edge Cloud and MEC. But Yeah, it's a shame Mahesh can't continue on, but luckily I have a presentation that has a video from 5GFF and Summit Tech that probably covers a lot of what he was going to talk about. So what I'll do is let me skip to that part and then come back to my presentation, which, by the way, I was going to say, okay, now we come to the fun part, because this is where, you know, we say the rubber meets the road. This is actual applications, use case. We heard a lot about application developers and APIs and end users, and this is exactly what I'm going to be covering with our award-winning innovative audience 8K 360 live streaming platform that leverages 5G and Edge. But let me skip ahead here quickly to this video. Hope I've enabled the audio sharing.
5G Future Forum is a global technology and telecom consortium founded in 2020 to accelerate, deliver, and develop MEC-enabled solutions across the world.
Our mission is simple. We want to expand the edge computing ecosystem to validate connectivity-driven use cases for consumers and businesses alike. The founding members consist of the world's largest operators. The power of MEC is providing the lowest latency possible to mobile applications through a series of complex steps, including geolocation of clients. We believe that in order to take advantage of 5G and edge computing, we must create a common approach across geographic boundaries. Interoperability is key to success, and that is what 5G Future Forum is working towards. Now, Boris from Rogers will give us an inside scoop of what they are doing from a technology perspective.
Thank you, Janine. Within 5GFF, we have established a technical workstream with an objective to develop a set of APIs that will enable development community and our customers to explore and tap into a full potential of 5G and edge technology. These APIs are written to ensure consistency in the way they are deployed, operated, and supported, regardless of the network operator or edge platform used. The Edge Discovery Service API addresses the most fundamental challenge in edge computing, which is identifying the edge platform that is not only closest to the device, but the one that provides the lowest latency. This is achieved by analyzing device and edge location and network traffic, allowing for seamless discovery and connectivity on any operator anywhere in the world. The 5GFF has partnered with Summit Tech in leveraging their audience platform to deliver and showcase the usability of Discovery API on multiple operator networks.
The 5GFF and Summit Tech ran a trial demonstrating multi-operator MEC with Edge Discovery on Audience, Summit's virtual live streaming platform. Viewers experienced 8K 360 immersive live streaming across Verizon and Rogers 5G networks simultaneously for maximum subscriber reach. The Audience VR platform leverages 5G, MEC, and the 5GFF Edge Discovery APIs to enable immersive experiences for live stream shopping, concerts, sporting events, esports, and corporate events. With Audience, content creators live stream high-quality, hyper-personalized 360 video in real time, creating engaging two-way remote participation experiences between streamers and virtual spectators. Real-time two-way video enables viewer engagement through interactive video walls, adding production value and excitement to the event. Audience elevates live events beyond the metaverse with carrier-grade security and reliability. Brands create unique viewer experiences by integrating customized microservices for interactivity, in-stream communication for social networking, and virtual commerce for monetization. 5G and multi-access edge computing are key enabling technologies, allowing for bandwidth-efficient, ultra-high-quality 360 video at scale to users' smartphones, PCs, and VR headsets, enabling next-generation immersive social events through stunning user experiences. The 5GFF and Summit Tech successfully completed a real-world trial that demonstrated value for enterprises, brands, content creators, mobile network operators, and virtual event participants. We will continue to build on the 5GFF promise of interoperable connectivity to accelerate the global commercialization of innovative and virtualized 5G edge services. For more information about the 5G FF, please visit our website at www.5gff.org.
So Doug, can I ask you to, well, we interrupted you twice, but here is back to you, Doug. Can you tell us a bit more, finalizing your presentation, your experience from launching an application on a MEC and with interoperability across multiple operators?
Sure, Dario. In Summit Tech here, we have a unique view because we are an application provider. We are working with a number of mobile operators, hyperscalers at the edge and 5G. And we have deployed an application called Audience, which is a 360 immersive interactive streaming platform. And I'm glad Tilly mentioned as one of the, she mentioned, characterized the market as being nascent. And that one of the key initial applications areas, use cases, is in entertainment and streaming. So that's right up our alley here. And by the way, I wouldn't call it nascent anymore because we've just reached our 20th deployment on an operator MEC. But Summit has been providing innovative and industry-leading e-commerce and telecom solutions for over 20 years. We delivered the industry's first IMS client way back in 2003. And have been a leading supplier of mobile device clients and SDKs ever since. And then by 2017, we were providing telco core infrastructure, NFV, and CPaaS software solutions to top-tier operators, and began developing the precursor to our Audience platform back in 2019. So quite a bit of experience in telco, IP communications, streaming, and now MEC VR 360 streaming. I'm conscious of time, so I'll go through very rapidly here. Audience is our end-to-end interactive immersive streaming platform. It's built for carriers, built for brands and enterprises, built for 5G, and certainly built for the Telco Edge Cloud and edge computing. As I mentioned, we've hit our 20th mobile edge deployment. We were the launch partner for AWS Wavelength, along with Verizon in the US, as well as Azure Public MEC. We're on STL's top 100 edge company list and recently won application of the year at Edge Computing World. And we've done several key trials with operators. So all this talk about interoperability, federation, APIs is extremely important. So one example here with AWS, their MEC Wavelength on both Vodafone and Verizon 5G. Next example here is with Azure Public MEC from Microsoft. And this was tested on AT&T's 5G network. And all these, by the way, we've generated trial reports and videos and blog posts. So you can, when you go back through the archive of this webinar, there's links there. And then, of course, I already rolled the video for the 5G FF. This was really important because we talk about federation and interoperability. This was really specifically about driving cross-carrier MEC interoperability and implementing and using and demonstrating the 5G FF Edge Discovery Services API, the EDS API.
5G.
So I'll skip through that. And upcoming, since we're talking about GSMA OPG and their companion group, the Telco Edge Cloud Forum, we are conducting a pre-commercial trial with multiple Asia MNOs. That's underway actually right now as we speak, and there'll be a large announcement in video coming at MWC in Barcelona. So let me just skip ahead here because I know we're running out of time, but essentially what we've done is we've upgraded the live streaming experience. Before, you had a linear passive one-way stream with no e-commerce, no interaction. With the Audience platform, it's truly immersive. It's a 360 hyper-personalized view. So every end user has their own unique view because it's a 360 view. And we enable this through MEC. We do the video processing at the edge to enable individual streams. Now think about 10, 20, 100,000, that may be possible in today's cloud solutions. But when you get into high scale, 10,000, 100,000, a million users, that would be completely impossible. Also, to deliver 8K 360 would take about 50 to 100 megabits per user. So we cut that down by 80–90% using MEC, and we enable full e-commerce. So in the stream, you have the ability to monetize, and it's truly two-way interactive because of the low latency delivered by 5G and MEC. We can do picture-in-picture video calling, so you can do a watch party, you can watch an event and participate in the event from being put up on the video wall within the event, or do calls between other participants. We have a completely integrated chatbot solution for e-commerce using RCS and omnichannel. And then specifically, I'll close here for MEC. I'll just run this short animation with and without MEC, and you can see here there are many choke points, a lot of congestion from the cloud to the operator network, and then from the operator network, even worse, over their RAN, their radio network. There's also high latency involved with the traditional approach, as you can see here. So congestion, latency means higher cost, poor user experience, and lack of scalability. So with MEC, we solve all of these problems. We reduce the traffic flow from the cloud, from the internet to the telco, and then from the telco, their base stations to the end users' devices. The bandwidth is cut by 80%. So reducing cost and load and battery life increases on the devices. And also scale is really important. So hyperscaling the concept, right? So you can MEC operators can have their own internal MEC, or they can partner with hyperscalers, as we talked about, to enable all of this. And at the end of the day, brands and enterprises want maximum reach, and end users, the subscribers, the device users want to be able to experience an event irrespective of the region, the country, the operator they're on. So the federation and the edge discovery APIs that we talked about are extremely important in real world deployments. Okay, I'll stop there. I know we're out of time.
Well,
I'll hand it back over.
Thank you, Doug. I like the fact that we ended covering, and I'm taking notes, the fact that just Sumitech has got 20 live MEC examples, great examples, but things are happening out there. So let me ask, I think we might get Mahesh as well. So question for, following up on this pretty much, if he's still there. So how many test services 5G FFN has got? Doug has whetted our appetite a bit. We heard 20 and already excited about that. Are there more things coming? How far advanced are we?
Very good question. And it also helps me highlight a challenge. So not all operators are in the same place in the MEC journey, the respective MEC journey. As I mentioned, Verizon has, in partnership with AWS, 19 wavelength zones as of now. And it's different for different operators. So in terms of API implementation as well, it's the same thing that the operators who have MEC available have deployed Edge Discovery service, which is the first API spec that we developed. It's there by quite a few 5GFF members, not all of them. And similarly, rest of them are under development. Same goes with the other APIs as well. Like some of them are under development by some of them had to start implementation.
Well, thanks, Mahesh, and thanks for coming back despite all of the technical issues. We appreciate that.
And apologies for that.
No, absolutely no problems. But as I've got all of you here, 2, 3, 4 minutes to probably ask the last questions, and if I could to Sandra and Dario as well. You both seem to have mentioned, just like we heard, the importance of the developers, let's call it that, the application side. What is, and some of them are probably watching this right now, what is necessary to get their excitement and more of the applications out there? May I ask that to Sandra first and then to Dario. Sandra, what do you think we could do? What is the GSMA doing to entice some of the application providers?
What we are trying to do to make their life easier, to have those, we have been talking about APIs a lot, but we know that the network APIs, they are very complicated. So we try to simplify those APIs, make them easily understandable for the application developers, provide some guidelines how they can be used, or what are the requirements for the network for certain type of applications. So this is what GSMA can, how GSMA can help the application developers to provide this type of guidelines to help them develop the applications.
Thank you, Sandra. Dario, may I ask the same questions? Developers.
Thank you so much for the question. Let me be very honest, Dario. Application developers, they don't read at all standards. It's a standard guy telling you. So this is the simple truth. We have realized this since some years ago. And as a standard body, well, we needed to take an action, okay? We are producing standards, and we should be aware that application developers, they don't open one single standard, even if this is for free, it's publicly available, everybody can read the specs. It's a PDF, open, enjoy. No, they have just to develop code and applications. They don't tend to have time to spend in reading the specs, right? So having said that, we have established a working group, for example, the code working group I mentioned, and we are doing a lot of activities which are equally important, in my opinion, to engage developers. This is so-called chicken egg problem that I like to say with my friends, right, of edge computing. The chicken egg problem of edge computing is you are, let's say, producing some work which is important for stakeholders like infrastructure owners. And then you tell, like operators, you tell them, oh, okay, please deploy MEC. And they can tell you, oh, yes, I would like, but I don't see applications. I don't see an ecosystem of applications at the edge. And then you knock at the door of application developers, and they can tell you, yes, I would like, but I don't see infrastructure. I don't see MEC servers where to deploy my apps. And this is the chicken egg problem. We have to break this chicken egg problem and engage both categories and stakeholders. What we do for engaging infrastructure owners, of course, we collaborate with operators. We bring standards for the infrastructure for building the system itself. But equally important, we have to engage application developers and then publishing, for example, open API representation of our APIs and running events like hackathons. Doug mentioned before the edge computing world. We finished just in October this successful MEC hackathon with some developers, with some winners and prizes on stage, just to inspire them and offer them, for example, the sandbox. There is a open source and free tool for them to use, and for application developers, they have to practice how to use APIs, how to consume them, and embed into their application. And this is a learning process, not only from the specification side, but we have to engage them to adopt MEC on application level.
And thank you, Dario. I did promise today that we were going to be looking at some of the high-level things, and then we'll look at that an hour and a half, and we'll just get into some of the exciting parts as well. Still, but thank you all for staying with us. It shows the interest that attendees are still here with us. I think we've whetted your appetite. I did say, watch this space. This has got the potential to change a lot the landscape in our industry, believe it or not, services and even types of companies that are out there. We did promise we'll come back, and I hear we called on Doug. If you are a member of MEF, you probably know by now that we're going to have a much more detailed plans of action to share this information. And thanks again to Tilly, to Sandra, to Dario, to Mahesh, and to Doug themselves. Doug, in your role as a coordinator at MEF here, can you say a couple of words about the Global Forum? That's our Mobile World Congress, our Barcelona same conference we're going to run on Sunday and Monday, and we're going to be touching on 5G again, right? Oh, sorry,
exactly. 5G with Edge, and this will be our kickoff in-person meeting for the new program team focused on Edge. And well, I guess this webinar is the official kickoff for that effort. And you can see it's all about collaboration, education, standardization, laying the foundational work And all of the respective trade associations, standards development organizations are doing great work on standardizing and going beyond standards as well, with some initiatives to bring the ecosystem together, white papers, best practices, and you know that MEF, the Mobile Ecosystem Forum, that is also a specialty of ours. So we're going to try to bring the best minds and efforts and best practices together, and shine a spotlight on this growing trend and important movement here in the mobile space.
Great. So it's a thank you again. We're a bit late. We probably need to wrap up right now, but it's a big thank you to Tilly Gilbert from STL Partners, to Sandra Ondruzova from Hutchinson 3 and the GSMA OPG chair, to Mahesh Chapalamadugu, the principal member of technical staff at Verizon and the 5GFF representative, Dario Sabella, the senior manager standards and research at Intel, as well as chairman of the ETSI MEC. And as we've just heard, Doug Makishima, CSMO of Summitech. To all of you, big thank you. We'll come back soon. Back to you. Thanks again. Bye-bye.